I've never thought of this, you know. It has never occurred to me. Why? Yeah, well, I had my own peculiar way of doing commentary. One thing I've observed about me, my voice, it's very commentating voice.
Pleasing to listen to.
Yeah, I think, you see, Festus had a very soft voice. I called it velvet voice. I think I have a voice that lends itself very easily to commentary. A tenor voice, not a bass one. And it stuck, I think it registered in the minds of a lot of people, more than that of Festus, who had a very soft, velvety voice. You know, and it's one of the things I've never thought of. It's interesting that you mentioned it. Yeah.
Now, you know, so those days, of course, Joe Lartey became a household name.
That's right.
How did it feel, you know, to be all over, you know, especially with sports lovers?
Well, it feels great. But you see, I tend not to glory in the encomiums that I was receiving from people. I just did my work, and I watched myself being appreciated, and I took it. I disciplined myself not to go over the wrong way, you know, because people enjoy you and they praise you, then you begin to play the fool. I managed not to do that.
Did women worry you?
Well, I had, we've been in marriage for 70 years. My wife will tell you the problems we've had.
So, Mr. Lartey, let's now talk about some of the key assignments you undertook as a sports journalist.
The first assignment of great interest that I can remember is a match between Real Madrid and the Black Star. This was in 1962. I was just a year old in GBC and at commentary, and I shared commentary with my boss, Festus Adjei. It was one of the most interesting coverages that I can remember. It ended in a 3-3 draw. What is most interesting about it was the amount of debate that preceded the match. People were debating, they were wondering why a national team, the Black Star, should pit its strength against a club side. And they talked about it a lot. That fixture, that encounter, was arranged by Kwame Nkrumah himself.
Okay.
So nobody could do anything about it. Kwame Nkrumah was interested in using sport as a political weapon. He arranged that match. And in spite of all the arguments that people put on the floor, the match had to be played, and it was played. And it was great. It was a great match. The stadium was packed. And commentary was, I don't know, great. You know, and Osei Kofi, who is still alive. Yeah, he came in. A pass from Osei Kofi gave us our third goal. So about 3 minutes to the end of the match, the score was 3-2. Then the ball was put into the center circle, and Puskas and Garincha, these wonderful names of the Real Madrid were there. As soon as the kick was taken from the center circle, the Real Madrid players took hold of it, and it went like poke, 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 poke. Before anybody could say Jack, it was 3-3. The stadium was quiet. You could hear a pin drop. It was quiet. everybody, some people were crying, because we had won the match. 3 minutes to finish it. And these people, the Real Madrid boys, they taught us that they were champions of Europe.
They taught us
that was my first assignment. One other assignment I can remember was the Engelbert versus Kotoko match, which was played in Kinshasa. I think it was 1971-72, towards the end of the year. And again, the stadium that hosted the match is still called Tata Raphael. This Father Raphael Stadium. It's like a fortress. It doesn't look like a stadium. It looks like a fortress, and it's very high. The walls are very, very high. And I remember that when I went to collect the lineup for the Engelbert team, I went very high up, right up there. I was alone, and I talked to the team manager. While we were trying to settle this thing, one of the officials of the Engelbert team came out and sparked into my face.
Wow.
They saw me with a stopwatch, and I think they suspected it was juju or something, because I was never able to put a finger on why that man did what he did. Sparked into my face. I felt I should do something in self-defense, so I took my handkerchief, cleaned my face, and carried on, got the lineup. Then Mobutu was at his zenith. Mobutu, he was right on top. And you should have seen his entourage, the motorcycle outriders, so many of them. They brought him to this. He used this, he had this leopard skin boot cap with his walking stick, came to the place. The stadium took 80,000 people.
Wow.
80,000.
Quite a packed
And
stadium.
each member of the spectators carried a lit torch. A lit torch. Lit. So the stadium was on fire.
And why was it for?
Oh, well, part of the enthusiasm, So the stadium was lit. Everybody was carrying a torch. And just when we took the lead, Kotoko took the lead, Mobutu was so disappointed he left. He didn't finish, he didn't see the end of the match. That was one of the matches that I covered. That was great. There's the boxing. There was a boxing match, which was very, very rare. The first ever professional boxing that took place in Ghana between Ramos, Sugar Ramos, and Fred Robertson. It was, I'd never seen boxers cancel each other out as they did that day. And after that fight, none of them was able to box better. They descended. It was tough. And I was sitting at the ringside. Ramos was standing in a pool of blood in his corner.
Wow.
And the blood spilled over his clothes. So each time he hit Robertson, it splashed and came into our shirt. We could smell the blood.
Wow.
I was
terrible.
My second was a man called Edmond Bannerman, B of T, an elderly man, and a specialist in boxing and horse racing. And he was doing the inter-round summaries. And in the 14th round, Fred Robertson decided he wasn't going back to fight. In his corner was Roy Ankra. Roy Ankra said, you have to push him into the ring, at the middle of the ring. And I think after the fight, I was told Ramos was taken to the 37 General Hospital. He was there for almost a whole day. Wow. He gave all his energy into that fight. I remember that. Then my interview with Muhammad Ali.
Oh, you interviewed him?
Yes, I interviewed Muhammad Ali. I interviewed there was the Negro athlete. I've forgotten the name. Muhammad Ali surprised me. I interviewed him at the Ambassador Hotel. And when I got into the place, I wanted to go over the main points of it. He said, no, just, he was in his birthday suit. Birthday suit. He was naked and was downing a bowl of ice cream.
Wow.
And the way he was answering the questions, I used 15-minute tips. I brought back about 7 of them. 15 minutes, 7. He was just, and he loved to make poems. He was constructing poems and reciting them. It was a beautiful human being. Unusual physique and beauty. His face was smooth, as if he'd never boxed before. And I'll never forget that interview. I'll never forget.
It was a great one.
Then, oh well, I mean, I was going to talk about something that was ceremonial. The visit of Louis Armstrong to Ghana. Okay. Hey, that was another thing. Louis Armstrong, you know. So, I think I've done what I should do. And I believe that God has given me an assignment. Yeah. I haven't finished yet.
You're still on it?
Yes, I'm still on it.
So, over to you, Joe Lartey. Why did you decide to go into sport instead of any other field but then sport?
I'll tell you why. The most surprising thing about me, I had a very disciplined father. He was so strict, a Methodist. And sometimes after I grew up, I saw him as a Puritan father. The Methodist religion, there are some people called Puritans. They were hard people, very hard, very serious, very disciplined. My dad was a bit of that. To the extent that an English friend of mine nicknamed my dad Joy Father. Joy Father. He wouldn't let people, he wouldn't allow me to play football. I was not allowed to practice sports.
Why?
Because my dad loved me so much so that he was not prepared to see me on the field of, look, I joined the school band. The day the Asantehene visited Accra, I was playing side drum. My dad was with an uncle of mine at the AMA, and my father said, what?
Is that my son?
Son of a Methodist leader playing drum. The next day he went to the school and I was sent out of the school band.
Why?
Yes, because I shouldn't play drum as a Christian.
It belittles you.
He said it was unchristian.
Unchristian.
For somebody who is a Christian to play drum, and I was cashiered from the band. My father was very strict. Killjoy father. That was what my
What's Killjoy
father.
That's interesting.
You see, so when I started running commentary, and he sent for me, and he said, look, I hear you make all that noise on Sunday afternoons. Who taught you to play football? You see, I did sports when I joined the Navy.
Okay.
That was my blessing. When I joined the Navy in the war, during the war, I joined the Navy in 1943, you know, and then we were doing sports. So I did a bit of sports. I did boxing, I played football, and so on and so forth. When I came out, I was okay. I had the foundation.
Yeah, the foundation.
And that was all the foundation I had in sports. So when I joined GBC, I had to learn sport. And I was lucky I had a man called Edmund Bannerman, very good in sports. He was teaching me all the things that I needed to know. Yeah, the terms that we were using and so on. You know. And that's how it happened. I actually learned sport. But my interest in sport is not much. It's not much. I'm more of, you know, something else. Yeah.
You also speak impeccable English. Where did you learn it from?
Well, I started reading very early. I partly had part of my education in the north. I attended Baga Baga Middle Boarding School. I entered the school at the age of 10. And at that time, the school had a big library for boys and girls, which we didn't have in the south. And the northerners were speaking impeccable English. You know. So when I got there, I had to follow the trend. I learned to read wide. I read Robinson Crusoe, Coral Island, Treasure Island. That was how I went into the Navy. I had that interest in seafaring. At
this point, over to you, Lartey. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll talk more.
Okay.
Well, you're watching Legends of Our Time on GBC 24. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk more. Please don't go. Gifty, Adjei, and my guest for today is Mr. Joachim Lartey, popularly called Over to You, Lartey. So over to you, Lartey.
Yeah.
Now, tell us about GBC during your time. Briefly, how was GBC like?
GBC was very lively. Look, let me be very honest and frank. There were a few white staff seconded from the BBC to see that GBC was on the right track. When these people were there, GBC was a very happy place.
In terms of salary?
In terms of salary, in terms of recognition for good work, and then they left. So they left one after the other. And GBC, I saw GBC going down, down, down. You know, all sorts of things were happening. So I found that there was so much injustice in GBC at that time. I don't know what's happening now.
Around which era?
I joined 61. By 65, thereabouts, I was beginning to feel the heat. That GBC, the conditions were not so good, you know. And so I joined, even though I was a senior officer, I joined the union and became the divisional secretary of Ghana Broadcasting Corporation of the Public Services Workers Union. I was trained in trade unionism by this man, Kwesi Pratt's father. He was a gentleman, was a nice person, very cool, very calm. He trained me. He took me through the various parts of trade unionism, you see. And because at that time, management relationship with a trade union wasn't very cordial. It was always rough. So once you were in the union, you earned the displeasure of management. And it affected me. I was on one grade for 8 years.
Wow.
On the program organizer grade. I was on that grade for 8 good years without promotion. it has affected my earnings today as on pension, you know, and things weren't going right. We lost some of the professional standards that we had developed under the expatriate staff. We lost some of them. People were backbiting others, undermining their friends and so on. And there was a time people were dying from GBC, one after the other. And it was believed that there was juju practice. So some people were even afraid to join the corporation at the time. But somehow we got through it. And that forced me to leave, to resign from GBC when I shouldn't. I left in 1973 and went to Ghana Food Distribution Corporation as a public relations manager.
So you left the talent?
Well, it was too much. I had to leave. And then from food distribution, I went into politics. That's another story. I went into politics.
Which political party?
I was with, there wasn't a political party as such. It was a movement which was established by the late Afrifa, General Afrifa, a movement called the People's Movement for Freedom and Justice. And our aim was to fight the union government concept, which was introduced by General Adjei, you know. And I was there with Nana Akufo-Addo. Yes, I have a newspaper cutting.
I'm sure he was younger then.
Yeah, yes, he was younger and very slippery, you know, very smart. He's here today, there tomorrow, adventurous, you know. So when he sees me, he calls me old man. Now I don't know which of the two is older. So I went into that. We fought against Achampong, and as a result, I had to go into exile in Nigeria.
Wow!
I ran away from Ghana because I was going to be arrested, and I didn't want it because my mother was still alive, and I was determined to see her end, which by God's grace, I did. You know.
So when did you come back to Ghana?
I came back finally in 1990. I returned to Ghana, and it was all so dry. I was about 60 plus.
And what did you do in Nigeria?
I was in broadcasting.
Broadcasting.
You know, in Nigeria, I had a friend, a professional friend called Ishola Folosho. Ishola Folosho. He was a commentator for Radio Nigeria, and he used to visit Ghana a lot. Their commentators were visiting. Yemi Fadepe, Ernesto Okonkwo. We were friendly, very friendly. So the night I arrived in Lagos, then there was a party at Chief Bindy's house at Apapa. I remember all this. And the man I was going to lodge with that night, he was attending the party. So his wife drove me to the party, you know, and I stayed there till the small hours of the morning. When early in the morning, I was feeling bored. So I decided to visit the a.k.a. where we had the Nigerian broadcasting. I went there. And I went to Ishola. He said, what brings you here? I told him the story. He said, oh, so Ghana doesn't want you. I said, no. He said, you know, you went into politics, you shouldn't have done that. And you know. Then he said, there's a program going on downstairs. He gave me the studio. You do the place. I said, yes, I go and join them. So straight from, I was in the studio. And I was taking part in a sports program. And you have these Nigerian names, the Yoruba names, and so on. I was struggling with them. Yeah. So somebody called from town, from Lagos. She said, is that man in the studio a Jumbu? A Jumbu means an Englishman. Okay. Then they wrote the question on a piece of paper and put it to me. And I had to be very quick because I was run away from Ghana, you know. So I said, oh, I come from one of the ECOWAS countries. And that was the end of the story.
That was the end of the story.
And from that day, I started working with Nigerian radio. And sometimes with the television people.
Station.
And it went on and on and on. Very exciting period. We were working very hard, harder than Nigeria, than Ghana. Because you know Nigeria is a very big place. Yeah. At the time they had about 10 states. And it was no joke at all. The programs were many. And I had to do it, you know.
But did it reflect in your pocket?
Oh yes,
was
well,
the money good?
I was given expatriate appointment in 1983. You see, I went there 1978, and I worked on contract until 1983, when I was given expatriate appointment. Normally, broadcasting stations don't, the national stations, they don't engage foreigners. But I had, because of my connections, you know, and then Vincent Assise, the late Vincent Assise, he too was given a job there, and the two of us were doing the Ghana stuff, you know, until 1990, when I came back to Ghana. I've never gone back to the place again. So that was the trend. I did a bit of politics, and I said I bent my fingers. You see, Nana Akufo-Addo, as I knew him in those days, when lawyers were afraid to be seen doing politics, he was taking part in demonstrations, carrying placards, you know. And I think when we come to consider things, his contribution to democracy in Ghana is very great.
It has been significant.
Yeah. So that's that. Back in Ghana, well, we started struggling again.
Let's talk more about GBC from what you said.
Yeah, GBC.
In terms of standards.
GBC.
We're still not there. What can we do to improve the situation?
The human material should undergo a change, a revolutionary change. I remember, it was a very interesting thing. One day, I applied for permission to hold a union meeting on the lawns, inside the lawns inside the house. You know it?
Yeah.
Yeah, the lawns.
The lawns.
You do things there sometimes. I wanted the union to meet there, and the application was turned down.
Why?
No reason. And out of anger, I led about 300 members of staff from GBC to TUC Hall. Never been done before. And the evening news came out with a report on that meeting, with me standing and addressing the audience. So GBC management issued me a query why I should not be dismissed for going to discuss management decisions in public. But you see, they made a mistake. The report, the caption under the report said, by evening news reporter, they were blaming me for exposing the thing to the public. And so there was a man called Labisian. He was the man who wrote the query. Very handsome latter man. So I took the newspaper to him and the report, the query. And I said, look at it, you know, look at the caption. He took the query from me and tore it into bits. And we went on as usual. But I think what you need in GBC, I'm wondering whether the spirit of GBC as it was when it was founded, and as there was that brotherly relationship among us. I don't know how that thing got lost, but I think you can still do it. You can still have it back. When the first thing you should do is to admit that things are not going well. That's the first thing. Admit that things are not going well. And then set about to correct it. Just forget about backbiting, undermining. Work. I went to the BBC at a time, and I brought back a system. They called it incremental credit. If you are not due for promotion, that you are a very hard-working member of staff, they gave you a number of incremental credits. Okay. And it was working. It worked up to a point. Then this thing got into it again, and they threw it overboard. You know, otherwise, you could be on one grade for a long time, but you'll be earning incremental credits.
That's in your salary.
And the finances of the country, the state of the economy affected GBC a lot. Because we were thriving on subvention, government subvention. GBC should not have gone commercial, but because of this situation. And I remember that W.F. Coleman, the first Ghanaian Director General, refused to allow commercial broadcasting in GBC. But because of the hardships, technicians from TV they staged a demonstration to the castle. We had a man as Minister of Information, Commissioner for Information, J.W.K. Ali. They went to him, and it was from there that we had commercial, so that we could earn a lot more money to ease the tight situation in the corporation. So I think first admit that things are not right, and then decide to usher a new system, especially the human aspect. The human aspect of GBC is more important than anything else. They should look at the human aspect of GBC as soon as possible. Those who are in charge now, they should look at it and try to make the people happy. Because when you are happy, it comes through your voice. People can tell it.
Productivity.
Yes, it does affect productivity. So I think that's what we should do. And then equipment. Technology is, I don't know how far they've improved things, but it should not be left behind. Because if you have the right equipment, it will make the job easy to practice. I think that should be done. And then you must have the fear of God. The fear of God. And it will be okay.
Well, the program is still Legends of a Time on GBC News. My guest today is Mr. Joachim Awole Lartey, popularly called Over to You, Joe Lartey. We'll take another break. When we come back, we'll talk more with him. Don't go away. Welcome back. The program is Legends of Our Time. We talk to great people who make all of us happy. My name is Gifty, Adjei, and my guest for today is Mr. Joachim Lartey, probably called Over to You, Joe Lartey. So over to you, Joe Lartey.
Yes, I take it.
So aside working for GBC, the food distribution company, going into politics, you also served in the Navy.
Yes, I served in the Navy. I served in the Navy during the war.
Okay.
And that was the greatest disappointment I gave to my dad.
Why do you say so? That's very harsh.
Yes, yeah, it's very harsh. You know, he was so fond of me. So when I disappeared, he couldn't have allowed me to go to the Navy because ships were sinking here and there. Places were being bombed. And a boy of 16 goes to war, but I went. And my dad was...
You went to Burma?
No, not Burma. I went by a troop ship called Cairo City from Takrady. You know, there is enlistment for the Navy was done in Takrady. Okay. So that was where I enlisted in the Navy. And after some preliminary training and so on, we were shipped to Freetown, Sierra Leone, on board a troop ship, because it took us about 4 days to get to Freetown because of the war, because the ship was zigzagging, it wasn't going straight. You know, we got to Freetown. Freetown, there was a place called Kington Barracks. That was where the Navy had its training. So I wasn't alone. There were some rascals also from Nigeria, Gambia, you know, the colonial people, and young boys. And we were trained. After training, I was taken to a place called Kisi. Kisi Barracks was a big place, the Navy, and we had the dormitories and things. Everything was normal. And then one day, you hear your name. We have a place called Regulating Office. The Regulating Office. They will announce, yeah, and say, they used to use a certain formula. They say, the following ratings report at the trading office, at the regulating office immediately. And they will call the names. And you go to the place, they tell you, you are going on board. You're going to work on a ship. And I was drafted to a ship called Kilkenzie, a corvette, very high. Hey! And we went on board. And you after maybe 3 months at sea, you come back, you rest a bit, they will put you on another ship, you know, until when I suffered shipwreck. They bombed our ship off Liberia. And I will never forget. That was when I felt I had wronged my father. Yeah. Because his picture was in front of me. We were lying in the open sea for 4 days. Later we were picked and sent to Dakar. You know. But all that, when I came back from the Navy, the first day I met my dad, he was looking haggard. You know. I was in a naval suit. He held me and said, oh, he said, I didn't know that the Navy could make men out of boys. I didn't know that the Navy could make men out of boys. And that was very reassuring. So we patched up. But even though he's in the grave, I still apologize to him. Because look, when George travels from Accra to Kumasi, I won't be happy until he returned. So when your son goes to fight on the sea, not on land though.
On the sea.
You know, and the life in the Navy was the best part of my life on this planet.
Why?
It was so good.
Why do you say so?
It was so enjoyable. You know, everything was properly put in place. Food. Look, you were given about 5 different kinds of raincoats. So you couldn't give an excuse when it rained. there was no way you give an excuse for not attending. The brain will be there. We'll have our parade on board ship. You have your parade, and before it was great. It was great. It was great.
Let's talk a bit about your early childhood. I mean, per your name, it tells me you're a Ga.
Yeah.
Yeah. How was Accra during your time, those days? How was Accra like?
Accra was a very small place, very small. And almost the end of Accra was the Palladium. The Palladium. You know the Palladium?
Yeah.
Where you have the Methodist Cathedral. It's an old cinema house called the Palladium. That was about the end of Accra. Then on the eastern side, you could go as far as to say Teshi. They were all small settlements. And we had sanitary inspectors who went round to make sure sanitation was properly done. They carried a little, a metal ladle, and they would come and find out what's happening under your pot. It was very interesting. But today you can't do it. Look at Accra. Accra has expanded, I don't know how far. But in those days, Accra was small. Sanitation was reasonably good because it was small. And the AME was very active, very. I worked at the AME for a while.
Okay.
As soon as I came out of the Navy, they were resettling ex-servicemen. And I was posted to AME. At that time, the town clerk was a white man, a man called Major McDougall. He too, an ex-serviceman. And the deputy was one party like Lartey. I remember all that.
So you were around when Nkrumah declared independence for Ghana. What do you recall of the day?
If I want to tell you about Nkrumah, when Nkrumah came from America, I was, I think, 20 in 1947, and I was born 27. I was 20. I was a pupil teacher.
Okay.
And there were a few of us, young boys, who were supporting Kwame Nkrumah. He used to wear a long jacket called Zuti. Zuti, and he brushed his hair backwards, and we were all following this practice. So when they were arrested, the Big Six, when they were arrested, we went around posting inflammatory things on walls. There was a place called Post Office Lane. It's no longer there. We go and put. Some of us were arrested. Others we got through with it. And well, we followed the development. We were very enthusiastic in the things that Kwame Nkrumah was doing until the UGCC split, and then we had the CPP and the other parties and so on and so forth. So Accra wasn't much to write home about. I remember when we had the earthquake. The earthquake, heavy rains in Accra, what we are experiencing today, we were experiencing in the 30s. We had the Achimota forest, very big, and it affected the rainfall in Accra. Achimota forest. Where is the Achimota forest today? It's almost desecrated.
What's Independence Day?
Then Independence Day, the polo ground, where we now have the mausoleum, the National Mausoleum. It was packed to overflow. People were there. They were we went. Some people got there around 6 p.m. and they waited until the Declaration of Independence.
Around what time?
It was about midnight. And Kwame Nkrumah said, "At long last, the battle is ended, and our beloved country is free forever. I want to take this opportunity to thank the youth the chiefs, the women, and who have fought a wonderful battle. Gloria Ghana, and it was moving, moving. And we started well. Kwame Nkrumah started well. But later, the devil set in, and it became a different thing. Yeah. So Accra has really grown. It wasn't like this before at all. Miles away from what it was at that time. Small, clean, cleaner than today. Fewer people. You see, the gangs entertained for visitors. I mean, they like to host strangers. And that's why today you have a Dabraka. A Dabraka, for instance, was a place for strangers. Kolegon, you go there today, it's an eyesore. Eyesore. And so on. So let's hope that we'll get back to the good old days, one of these days. Yeah.
So over to you, Joe Lartey has been married for 70 years.
Yeah.
That's remarkable, you know. Tell us about your nuclear family. Who is this special woman in your life? And
yeah, it's
your
called
children and grandchildren.
Emily Adjei. When I met her, Emily Adjei was her name. And she comes from Lartey, not from Accra.
Okay.
But we found that her ancestors came from Accra. They were from Akoto Lartey. You know. When I proposed, I met this woman in 1949. She was a teacher. I was also teaching. I had been transferred from Accra to Lartey to teach. And we had a teacher's party, end of year party, and there was this very black woman with gleaming white teeth sitting at her corner. Everybody was dancing, she wasn't dancing, and so I said, look, why don't I go and talk to this woman? So I went there, I said, do you mind we'll have a dance? She said, and then we got up and we danced and we danced and danced again. And that was the beginning. We courted for 3 years. 3 solid years.
Yes.
And then 52, we engaged her and we had our marriage. And that same year, we had our first boy, who was, well, you don't know him. He's out there, you know. And the father didn't want me to marry her. Because imagine, he said, Accra is too far from Lartey. 34 miles.
At the time,
yes, it was
Today
far.
Is not far, but those days was far.
You see, and in those days, there were only 2 trucks plying Lartey and Accra. And once they left, then you had to walk. I have walked through from Dodua to Lartey about 3 times. That forest, the Dodua forest, fearful. I had walked from Ayikuma. I climbed the hill from Ayikuma to Lartey on a number of occasions. I was chasing this woman.
Because of love.
Yeah, because of love. You see, we had 3 children in 18 years. And my mother, with 6-year intervals. So my mother was asking whether we were
We planned.
a lion or a lion. It was funny. And we managed. It wasn't all a bed of roses. I can tell you that. It wasn't all plain sailing. We've had.
So what has been your secret to this 70 years and still counting?
Yeah, well, I think, as I said, and I always give a lot of credit to my wife. She's a well-brought-up woman. Very patient, accommodating. She can endure. She can bear things. I did a whole lot of things which, if she hadn't been the woman she is, this marriage would have blown up long ago.
Let's talk about some of the awards you've received
in
the course
awards.
of your profession.
Oh, a lot of them. You know, I introduced...
there's one here.
Yeah. This one was given to me by the management of SWAG, SWAG means Sports Writers Association of Ghana. And it started quite a long time ago, during the time of the National Liberation Council. Then a.k.a. was the Commissioner for Information and Sports, you know. And when we started SWAG, the sports writers, that's the people in the newspapers, there was a gentleman called Willie Quatten. Willie Quatten was a sports writer with the Times. And he started opposing my election as the first president of SWAG. His argument was that radio people don't write sports. So later, it brought a whole lot of confusion. But later people had to reason out that after all, as a television sports, sports journalist or radio sports journalist, you write before you present. Broadcast. So that idea was taken away, and the thing stood. So, well, they thought of it all. And just when I was thinking or reassessing my relationship with the SWAG, of which I'm a patron, they invited me to receive this award. It was very interesting.
It's a beautiful one. Let's look at this award from Toastmasters.
Yeah, this Toastmasters. One of the most significant achievements of my life is the fact that I teamed up with an American gentleman to set up the first Toastmasters Club in Accra. And I'm happy to say that the Toastmasters idea has spread. We now have about 13 clubs in Ghana. And that's one of the clubs is named after me. And it's something about which I am very proud.
Very proud.
I'm proud because I'm proud and happy because through the Toastmasters, I've been able to impact a number of people. By my experience and study, I have found that the best thing you can do on this planet Earth is to impact the lives of other people.
So this is also an award.
An award. This is
would you say as a sport personality you've been recognized enough?
In Ghana?
Yes.
No. No. You know what? There was an occasion at which past players of the Black Star were forming an association. And President Kufuor was in attendance. And I was the MC for that occasion. So in my closing remarks, I stated that sports commentators are the people who popularize players. We talk about them, we praise them, and so on, and they become very popular. And they have received so much recognition, but sports commentators said no.
So we are wrapping up. Are there lessons you'd want to share with us?
The first lesson I'd like to pass on to you is when either by the grace of God or through your own efforts, you achieve things in your life, you must learn to carry yourself properly. Because if you don't do that, this thing goes into your head and you become, you may even lose your fame or popularity because you become disrespectful. I don't want to refer to recent events, but you do things that you ought not to do. So the first lesson, we should, those of us who are in the broadcasting business, writing business, whatever, those of us who are in, when we gain popularity, when we gain fame, we should learn how to carry ourselves. Because otherwise, the whole thing becomes very bitter. Yeah, so
we have to go, but over to you, Joe Lartey.
Yeah.
Finally, how would you want to be remembered?
Simple. I want to be remembered as somebody who came and helped Ghanaians to be happy. That's all.
Over to you, Joe Lartey.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having us in your home.
Thank you.
Indeed, we are so grateful. And we've been inspired by your story.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I'm happy that you managed my citadel. Yeah, very happy. Thank you.
It's a nice place. Thank you so much. Anyway,
yeah, this one.
The program has been Legends of a Time. My guest today has been Mr. Joachim a.k.a. Lartey, popularly called Over to You, Joe Lartey. My name is Gifty, Adjei. Thank you so much for watching. We'll come your way same time next week. Bye for now.